success isn't the same as freedom. Today, we'll talk about what it really means to opt out of capitalism. That doesn't mean sell your earthly possessions and move off the grid. Instead, we'll look at opting out of capitalism by reclaiming our time, examining our values, and defining what enough looks like to us. Hi, and welcome to Opting Out of Capitalism. I'm your host, Tavia. I am a Black woman, a mom, a wife, and an educator. I work as an interventionist for a local public school, and I am a dyslexia therapist. And I've worked in education for about 8 to 10 years, give or take, because I have put some breaks in there for me, and it worked out perfectly. Now that I've listed my titles, let's talk about who I am beyond those titles. Let's talk about me as the person. Who is Tavia, the person? At my core, I love music. I love movement. I love to dance and even sing. I love to make music. It's something about music and movement. It cleanses my soul. I process my thoughts and I can get a better understanding of the root cause of how I feel about things when I move, mostly exercise and dance. Also, I love to learn. So I am what we call in my field a lifelong learner. I'm constantly looking to learn or grow my mind. I just can't get enough. I love to learn new hobbies. I love to deepen my knowledge of my field of study. So, why did I start this podcast? I chose to start this podcast as a means of processing my personal relationship with capitalism and finding a way to make that a better relationship. So instead of me spending money because I need to feel something, I need to process what's causing the emptiness. So you're coming along on a journey with me to help me understand my own personal relationship with the world around me and processing how I can be more responsible at spending as developing myself mentally to be whole. Thanks for coming along the ride with me. Over the past few years, I have been just so anxious, especially around money and not just money, but money is a part of it. But just moving about in the world too. At one point, I couldn't move about the world without certain things on, but I've been anxious. I was burnt out, and it's all led me to feel so jaded as it relates to just the world around me. So, interacting with people and the latest of trends, just society as a whole, it makes me feel jaded. Like, I just kind of want to cut things off. And so, before I get to that point, I wanted to do this podcast to help me process what's causing those feelings of anxiety and burnout and just overall being jaded with what the world looks like today. So I know that for me, it feels like I'm on a hamster wheel. Like every day, just trying to keep up with my day to day is the same day over and over and over. While I'm not always on the latest trends, usually I'm really late to them, and I like it like that. Like I like to let things run its course because a lot of times what I learn, especially with like the BBL trend and all the other trends, if you get on some of these trends, they can have some negative side effects. And so I like to just let things run its course and see what happens and then make a decision about what I think of it. Um, However, I know I can't be the only person who has felt that anxiety and that burnout and even what I'm calling feeling jaded, maybe some feelings of anger or irritation as it comes to looking at what society is or has become. I have been linking my feelings with every time I get onto social media, I'm seeing what looks like a lot of get ready with me, and it's just I feel like I'm being hit with a barrage of products. If I get on to check and see how friends are doing, or if I'm looking up a cooking video or just something, I'm hit with a barrage of get ready with me's. I'm using this, I bought this, I spent this, and it just feels like I'm constantly being sold to, or I'm seeing all these haul videos. And don't get me started on these past few Christmases where It's been, let me show you all the things I got for Christmas and tell you how much everything costs as a display of wealth. So there's always been some sort of display of wealth. It's just now we have social media. So the world is just a much smaller place and everybody can see everything. And so I think it kind of wears me down. Even going into places where there's this abundance of stuff, it does something to me. It's just too much. I feel overwhelmed. But let's talk about consumer culture because we are consumers. And so we have trended more towards being our culture centering around what we can consume as well as overconsumption. So we're not just consumers, sometimes we are over consumers. Like look at the Labubu trend. What does a Labubu do? Like when I first saw them, I thought they was like little evil dolls. But truth be told, it just to me it was a waste of money. It looks like a waste of money. Even with the spray ground backpacks. Why are we spending $70 to $80 for a book bag? We can go get a JanSport. That book bag is gonna do the same thing as that $30 JanSport. Okay. So let's talk about what these terms consumer culture and overconsumption mean. So I'm going to start with consumer culture. So consumer culture, that definition was pulled from the Britannica dictionary, and they define it as a form of material culture where values, meanings, and identities are shaped around consumption of goods and services. So we all know somebody who they seem to put their identity into their purses, their car, or their shoes, or their clothes, or how big their house is, or what neighborhood their house is in, or even their job. Like at one point, my identity was my job. Like I'm learning how to not make my identity a part of my job is not my identity. Yes, I am a teacher. Yes, I am a dyslexia therapist, but there's so much more to me. That's why I separated my titles in my intro from the things that I enjoy. But every time I log online or even just talking with friends sometimes, it feels like we're looking to the next thing. And we all know somebody who their identity is the things that they own. And overconsumption. So I just got overconsumption's meaning off of Google. So there might be some AI involved. But it is excessive consumption or use of something. And when I was growing up, to me, it just sounds like gluttony. Like we're over consuming. When I look at some of these videos where these girls are showing off their makeup or using their makeup, it just seems like they got 13 products for their face. That cannot be healthy for your skin. 13 different products. Or you see all these videos, these restocking videos. Yeah, they may be good to look at if that's like that ASMR type content is something you enjoy, but I'm just thinking about the amount of trash we're creating to do that, how much money might or might not be spent, especially if it's somebody who's emulating these people. Just imagine how much money is being spent on that. That's crazy. And it seems exhausting to have all of this stuff. Now, on this podcast, we won't pretend that money is bad and money does not matter. Money is not bad, but the way that we use it, can cause a burden on our lives. We all have bills, so we do need money. That's our currency in this day and age. If you go back a few thousand years, it might have been rocks or shells or silver or whatever else they use, depending on the culture. So right now, we're in a society where it's money, and pretty soon it's going to be some kind of digital currency. Um, Instead of looking at it as money is bad, we shouldn't use it, opt out, rah, 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 we're going to talk about whether or not money should get to decide every aspect of our lives in that manner or the quality of our lives in every aspect. So, what does opting out mean? It's easy to assume that opting out means to never buy anything or quit your job or live off the grid or reject technology or even opposing doing business, or the idea of business altogether. However, that's an extreme approach. Humans are interdependent, so we can't just be alone. It's more feasible to opt out by spending our money with intention. buying our necessities, and prioritizing work-life balance when possible. And I understand that it's pretty hard for some of us. Some of us work jobs where we're on a swing shift, so we don't get to control what hours we work, or if you're working in a hospital or at an on-call job, especially in the emergency room, you don't get that luxury, so we got to accept that while we can buy luxuries with money, the true luxury here is our time. We don't get to replace that. We might lose $5. That $5 can be replaced, but we cannot replace 5 minutes of our time. So the true luxury is time. However, what we can do is we can set some boundaries. So for me, setting a boundary like I said, I'm a public school teacher. So during the school year, I have to be at school by 7:10, and I have to be there. My contract hours are from 7:10 to 3:15. No, I can't control what I do with that time. However, I'm also a private therapist. So I can control what days I do work. So this school year, I'm going to play around with a more relaxed schedule where I'm going to work 2 days during the school week. The other 3 days will be time for me to go and get my kids and be at home and be present more at home. And then I'll offer one weekend day where I'm doing therapy. So we'll see how that goes. But that way, I won't feel so exhausted through the week, and I won't feel like I'm doing all of my chores on the weekend around the house. Um, we can also seek to build our community. So I've been reaching out to more friends and friends from the past. And even since we've gotten our house, I've done more with having family get togethers where we just all get together, play some cards or something, eat and have some libations and just talk trash. And it has been a fun experience to watch my family. And then we need to prioritize, or I do, prioritize building that community as opposed to competition. We have to divest from profit centered decision making. So we have to step away from making those choices based on what we'll make, as opposed to there's a greater emotional gain that we would get from it. Why is this conversation important? Well, it's important because it's super easy to tie our value into our ability to optimize, and eventually we forget to just exist, that we should be living in the moment, that life goes beyond what we can make and how productive we can be. So capitalism can influence our life by having us to believe that productivity is a part of our identity. And for me, that looked like having a checklist. At one point, I needed that checklist because I would forget what I needed to do, or I wouldn't be able to get anything done. So, starting out earlier on, maybe 10 years ago, I needed a checklist. But now, sometimes I can agonize over what I didn't do on my checklist. And sometimes that work checklist will come home with me because I need to get these things done, because I do work in a role where I sit in between administration and being a classroom teacher. I don't have a roster, but I both work with students and I have to do some interfacing with teachers, those students, the teachers, getting information from them and having to train them on how to do my segment of work. So, how to do the paperwork that comes with my segment. So, I do sit in between admin and being a teacher. And that comes with its own professional sessions where I have to meet with teachers and I have to have paperwork ready. But I also have to do the same things that the teachers do as well. So a lot of times that work didn't get to be done when I'm at work only because I'm spending most of my day in sessions with students, but I still have to make things and keep up with paperwork and data. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm not productive today because I didn't get any of my administrative tasks done. So the next thing is turning our hobbies into side hustles. And so I love a new hobby. And at one point, I would try to monetize those hobbies. And that's not good. It's just really stressful. Because at one point, I learned to sew and I was working at a bridal shop. And I loved sewing the bridal gowns because they're so intricate. And when you open those dresses up, it's like trying to figure out, it's reverse engineering to me. I had to figure out how they sewed this dress together. And the more couture the garment, the more the more intricate the work is going to be on the inside. but I liked it. I really liked it. It really sparked me. Okay. But so I did that and I enjoyed doing it, but there were so many deadlines and so much revenue you have to make and all these other pieces because it was this corporate environment that it made me feel so jaded. And while I had a great relationship with leadership that at that particular store level, because I had left and come back about 3 times, and every time I said I wanted to come back, they prioritized getting me in because they knew I was excellent with the customers and I'm going to do some immaculate work. But it got to a point that last time that I was there, I rage quit. The same day I went in one day and I was polite enough to tell her, "Hey, after today, I love y'all, but I'm not coming back. I can't do this anymore." Just because everything was a profit, profit, profit. And that's not how I wanted to view this thing that I love to do. So I left that alone. Another example is my husband's a photographer. And for me, I was pushing him because if you know anything about photography, the equipment ain't cheap, honey. Okay. The equipment ain't cheap. It's expensive. The lenses are more expensive than the bodies. So I would tell him, if you're gonna do this, I'm gonna need you to make them cameras pay for themselves. But I shouldn't have told him that because now I put pressure on him. Oh, I gotta make money from this. And thank God he don't really listen to me like that. He's a different kind of guy, and I really needed him because he is the calm to my storm. Like just like Lynn Toller would say about her husband, he's like a big bottle of Valium. That man is my bottle of Valium. Do you hear me? He calms me right on down. But next is just feeling guilty for not resting. And if you can't tell, these are all things that, or these are all ways that capitalism has affected me personally. And I know I can't be the only one. So if some of this resonates with you, please sit down and unpack it with me in your own way. You can journal about it, whatever you need to do. But just feeling guilty for not taking rest. And for me, that looks like, oh, my house is messy. I can't sit down. In my mind, that's what I think. I can't truly rest until all my chores are done, till all my work is done. And I've spent so much time in college or in school that I always feel like there's some work to be done. I got something to do. So I feel guilty when I pause to rest and I'm working on not doing it. And today I did an amazing job. I took a nap with dishes in my sink, and that never happens. Like, I want my house to be a certain way. And just lately, I've been saying, I'll get it done, but it might be a lot easier to do. It's going to be a lot easier to do if I do it rested. So I'm allowing myself to rest. Next is I find myself comparing myself to others, and I used to do this a lot, especially during the pandemic, because where were we going? Most of the time our escape was on social media. And so, especially during the pandemic, people were just buying houses, houses, houses. And my thing was at that time, I wanted a house. However, it wasn't time for me at that point because I had another responsibility. Didn't realize it, how deep I had been put into this and how much I was needed for it. But I was taking care of my granddad. And at that point, that was my way of saying thank you for taking care of me when I was little. My father died when I was younger, so he stood in the gap. My granddad stood in that gap and he filled the father role. So, me going to stay with him and usher him through his Alzheimer's was my way of saying thank you. Um, but I would log online and I would see how people have a house or why can't I get a house? And I'm not a jealous hearted person. But to see all you see is somebody's success and you can't really get to where you're trying to be, it can do something to you psychologically. Next is I was always chasing my next. Perfect example. I finished my dyslexia program. I finished that master's degree program in 2023, I believe. Not 45 minutes after I had completed my stuff and taken my pictures, and my husband came to get me and we took some pictures on campus. I was talking about what could my next steps, how am I going to get into a doctoral program? What do I need? Instead of just sitting in the moment and reveling and enjoying it and learning and growing. And so I had to force myself to just slow down. Now I am still on track. I'm looking and researching programs this year, and I'm going to be applying with this coming fall cohort for a psychology doctoral program, hopefully school psychology. So I'm still on track, but I just had to learn that I don't have to be in such a rush to get to where I'm going. The next thing that I do, or the next way that I feel like capitalism influences me, is I'm always measuring. At one point, I don't do it now because I realize that I do it and I've started to catch myself. But I would measure my success solely by what I make. So my income ain't enough. I ain't making 60 yet. I ain't got enough, or I need to have this much by this age. And I mean, I was doing this as recently as last year. Shoot, even the beginning of this year, I've just recently gotten to a point to where I'm like, all right, enough is enough. We can be comfortable right where we are, because what I've discovered is the more I make, the more I'm gonna need. So I need to learn how to appreciate what I have now, and so when that more comes, because it's gonna come, now I'm still okay, and I have excess. I can bless others. That's what I'm trying to do. All right. So what can opting out look like? Now everybody's idea of opting out is gonna look different. So what opting out for me, it might look like, for me, won't look like that for you. So for me, that'll look like shopping secondhand, and I already do that. I love going thrifting, y'all. Love going thrifting. I gotta go now because I need to see if I can find like a little cheap refrigerator and a microwave for my classroom. If you got some deals, drop them in the comments. Prioritizing rest, and I've been doing it by like the new modified schedule I'm gonna do for my dyslexia therapy. I'm also gonna just stick to contract hours, which I have been doing an immaculate job of that over the last few years anyway. My value as a teacher is not tied to whether or not I stay 30, 40, 50, 60 an hour, 2 hours late for work, or if I come an hour early. My value is not tied to how many hours I spend in that building. It's about the work that I do while I'm there. Leaving or being at work during my contract hours didn't make me a bad teacher. Just the same as being at work beyond those contract hours didn't make me a great teacher. So, and when I first started out, I would go to work at 6 in the morning, and I might not leave till almost 6 in the evening. I was extremely stressed and my children were not making growth. I'm not saying I was a bad teacher. I was a work in progress. I was learning, and I was still shaping myself as an educator, learning my best way for teaching, and building that environment. That's something that you don't get to learn in school. That's a real world experience. You just got to get in the classroom. So all my aspiring teachers and my new teachers out there, if it feels crappy right now, baby, keep going. Read the Wong book, First Days of School. That thing's gonna get you in there. And one thing that I've learned is kids have the memory of a goldfish. So if it don't work today, throw away what you don't like and keep what you do like. And look for some other ways. Just try different things. For me, because I started teaching at the height of processing loss. I went right in. I didn't take time to process losing my grandmother. I just went straight in. So I went in at the height of that, and I was anxious, having panic attacks. And what helped me was playing lo-fi music. Now, my kids, it helped them too because that lo-fi music helped them to focus. But it really helped me to stay calm and stay on track. And what ended up happening was is I would come up with these wonderful ideas on the spot. We were using manipulatives, we get on the floor and work. I turned that classroom into an environment that I needed to thrive, and my students in turn ended up thriving as well. And so if I would not play the music, they would ask, "Are you gonna play the music today? Are you gonna play the girl? You gonna put the girl on the screen?" And so that really touched my heart to know that that was helping them. Something that I was doing to help me actually helped calm a group of kids who, in other circumstances, would have been considered rowdy. But being in that position just taught me you got to just work on the spot. and you got to do what works for you. Another thing is instead of me always reading informational text, I am reading for joy. I am currently reading installment 2 of Ladarian Williams. It's like Blood at the Root, but that's the first installment. I'm reading at the Bones at the Crossroad now. I love this book. This book is awesome. Granted, I love the idea of Harry Potter. I just couldn't get into it. But it's the way that he explained it was it's like Harry Potter if it happened in an HBCU. So if that's your thing, you should check it out. He's got 2 installments, so you gotta read Blood at the Root first so that you can get the story for Bones at the Crossroad. And no, this is not a sponsor. I'm not sponsored or anything. I just really like reading this book. Um I am practicing cooking more. So cooking at the house, that's a way for me to disengage with capitalism. I work at a school, so I have to pack my lunches now. I can't DoorDash anymore. I can't leave work because I'm at the school. So now I have to plan and meal prep, and I'm going to do more cooking at home. Um, I'm going to exercise for pleasure and processing as opposed to progress. I'm going to engage in some free and low cost outings. I'm going to take on hobbies for the fun of it. So, in closing, I want to pose this question to you. How much is enough? So, I'm going to also be pondering that question. And I've been pondering that question for a long time. Like, how much is enough? When do I stop? And I've been doing a great job with figuring that out with food and with leaving, because at one point I was just sitting in a place because I didn't want to draw attention to myself. And now when I've had enough, I just get up and walk out. I think enough for me is when it comes to food, I'm not hungry anymore. Or when it comes to being somewhere, I think I'm just ready to go home now. I'm getting no more joy out of being here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead out. I'm starting to turn into that little SpongeBob meme when you get up out that chair. All right, I'm gonna go head out. So I want to pose that question to you guys. What does enough look like to you? So if there is a means, because this is my inaugural episode and I'm not quite sure of what commenting is gonna look like, but I want you to just ponder that question and put it in the comment section. What does enough look like to you? And if there is a means of getting comments and reading them, I want to read a few of your comments in the next episode. So, as we close, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey of opting out of capitalism and whatever that means and looks like for you. And I hope to see you in our next episode. If today's conversation did resonate with you, please subscribe and join me next week as we continue exploring what it means to build a life around values instead of constant consumption. And until then, protect your time, question what's the default, and remember that a meaningful life isn't always the most profitable one. It's really about peace. And on that note, I'll see you guys later. Gotta go pick my child up from bowling. So, peace out, peeps. See you next week. Bye.